Okay. We are live.
Hi, everyone. This is María Teresa Kumar with Voto Latino, and we are live right now with Rosario Dawson, my partner in crime, and with Camila Morrone, who is pinch hitting, but who has been incredibly important in our campaign. You know, much love right now to Zoe Zaldana. She sent us a note. She has fevers and chills, and she's really puffy, so we want her to get well. But we know that elections cannot change the date, so we have to have this conversation right now. So before we get started, Rosario, what's your getup?
You know, as you're saying, this election's right around the corner, and we are doing anything and everything in our power to just...
No, but you have to explain your costume.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So we're charging and raising funds for places like for Michigan and for Wisconsin Dems. So this Friday, I'm doing a reading of Fright Night, a live reading, and then on Saturday, doing a live reading of the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh.
I play Magenta, so we're just getting ready and shooting some stuff as like, you know, just as an offering. But you know, it's just all in the good name of fun and getting people together, raising funds in a really great way, and bringing other folks on board who are, you know, still thinking about maybe donating, not necessarily knowing where. And through this reading, we're just reaching different audiences to help. And any little bit of money a donation can do. We just did that recently for March for Science and Voto Latino. We did a Dazed and Confused reading. Matthew McConaughey, Parker Posey, Joey. I mean, we had all the different folks, and we were able to raise really good funds for Voto Latino and March for Science in Texas.
That's right. And Texas is the place where it is. And March for Science was fun because even Ben Affleck not only joined, but Ashton Kutcher made an appearance. So that was all the rage. It was fantastic. So Camila, I know that you are newer to the Voto Latino family, but I want to thank all the stuff that you've done because I think it's made such a difference. Tell me, why are you getting involved? No, Cami just froze, I think. So before we get her, I have to say, Camila called me out of
I've completely lost.
You've frozen. There you go.
Am I here, guys?
You're great. You're great. We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, I'm back for a second. I'm here. I cannot promise that I will be here throughout because my Wi-Fi is having an emotional meltdown, probably because we're days away from the election. So please ignore if I fall off for a minute. I didn't hear what you said, Maria Teresa, but
so why
I think you introduced me, and I just want to say thank you both. Thank you both for introducing me to Voto Latino and for welcoming me to the family. I just wanted to say that first because it's been really nice to be a part of this family, and the stuff that you do is absolutely amazing. The reason I'm getting involved, this is my second election voting. I obviously was not involved in the last election like I am in this election, but with everything at stake and our entire democracy and country at stake, I had to get involved. And Voto Latino kind of felt like the perfect way to target an audience. Being Latin is such a big part of my upbringing. My mother's in the back over there phone banking today. So that's, we're on all hands on deck. All hands on deck. That's a family affair. We're all hands on deck here. We know what's at stake in this election. I'm voting because I want a president who believes in science, and that's where I stand. And that's why I'm getting my vote out, and I'm really proud of my friends and my family and everyone I work with on getting this vote out early. I've already voted. I've gotten my dad to vote. I dropped off his ballot with him a couple days ago, so we're on the right track.
I'm super proud. But you know what I love, Camila, is that you hit what Voto Latino is about, right? It's a family thing. It's not just like, I'm going to vote for me, but I'm going to bring other people along. Rosario, I know that you have been marching since Al Sharpton used to wear sweatsuits. That's what you love to say. Right? So we keep talking about, you know, we want to use this odd time to talk about the importance of not just voting, but why should people be voting early? I think Rosario froze. Camila, Rosario, did you get that? Why should people vote early?
You know, I think it makes it so you can feel really confident that your vote's going to get in. There are certain places where your ballot has to be in by 8 p.m. We just saw that, I believe in Wisconsin. They lost their fight in the courts have it past that point, so people could actually just post date it on November 3rd like you normally can, and if it comes within that 3-day period afterwards. But so I think there's a lot of also planning. People are able to really make sure that they're voting safely, that they can not be worried about work or other things. I think what's really great about taking that ballot and having it home with you and being able to fill it out is you can do all your research and to not feel like pressure to kind of rush through or skip through things or feel overwhelmed that maybe you're not fully sure what you're voting for or who you're voting for, and be really clear and specific about that. Cami, again, I love what you were talking about doing it with your family, because it's so important to make that plan to vote, but also to encourage other people to come in along with you. And there's a lot on the ballot. There's a lot on the ballot. It's science, it's climate change, it's reform, it's our healthcare. This is an opportunity for us to speak out, not just as we've been marching the streets and making posts online, but making sure that we're writing that love letter to America.
I love that, the love letter to America, Camila, because I think that when people talk about why do celebrities get involved, I'm like, because they're citizens first, right? And the platform that you guys talk to is so expansive. Oftentimes you guys talk to folks that politicians don't talk to. So I know that you have had such an engaged audience. What has been like the quirkiest experience you've had in this whole campaign season, Camila?
The what experience? Sorry, you froze up.
Like the quirkiest. Like I know that you were able to bring in new people. So you brought in Selma Hayek under the fold. Like what's been like the funnest part of this whole thing for you?
Yeah. The funnest part, well, doing a video with Selma was really fun. It was an in-person thing, and we've all done so much of this over the career. So, we got tested, we were able to be together, and Selma's like a crazy, fun, wild spirit, but above all that, she's so intelligent and such an activist for our community and speaks so well and so knowledgeable. Just like you guys, when I hear her talk, I'm just totally entranced and in awe and want to hear more. But yeah, that video was really, really fun. And I think it's been fun because it really has kind of united my family. My mother is here doing the phone banks. My dad and I sat together for actually over an hour, and we watched each proposition video. They have explanations in under a minute for what each proposition means. And it was really informative and easy and great. And we had a great time. And then we went to go get lunch, and we dropped off his ballot in West Hollywood. So it's been kind of like a union. And I think in this time, we really need that. And I just feel like we are just so much stronger together. And it's obviously showing up in numbers.
And I have to tell you guys, so Voto Latino, we registered close to 600,000 folks. Over a third of the people we've registered have already voted. And so our job now is to get them all to vote. In Texas, everybody says now that Texas is flippable because now it's a toss-up. We registered 250,000 new Texans there, just our organization. When Rosario and I started, it was so fun because, Latinos, 30,000 Latinos would turn 18 every month. A Latino turns 18 every 30 seconds now. Talk about like mind blowing. So Rosario, when we first started, do you think that we would be here today? I don't know if you heard me. She looks so much fun. So yeah, Camila, can I tell you oh, you're still here. Did you hear me? So Rosario, did you think that we were going to be here today?
No, not. I mean, when we first started, how many people did we register that first year?
2,400, which was great, but 2,400.
Which was so great, 100,000. And in Texas alone, there's in the millions going across the nation, and we have such an incredible turnaround for people actually registering and then turning around and actually voting.
Oh no, I think her Wi-Fi is worse than mine at this point.
Ladies, hold on there. So I want to ask, I think that a lot of
we're losing everything you're saying.
I know. Do you want to, there you go. Do you want to try again, Rosario? So I think we just lost,
we lost
Rosario.
Yeah, just, us starting with, very modestly and continuing with the.
Oh.
It's because we're doing the time warp again.
I'm so sad. We can't hear you. This is so tough.
It's because
but I have to say,
time warp.
It does feel like a time warp. It does feel like a time warp. I have to share though with everyone. I think our Wi-Fi is not the strongest right now on Rosario's side, but I have to tell you that being on this journey with Rosario has been not only amazing and phenomenal and inspiring, but when we first started, Camila, a lot of people were afraid in the industry, were afraid to speak out on politics. They were really shy to do it. And Rosario was like leading the charge of like, no, this is who we are. Like we're a total person. And so to see voices such as yours coming out, Salma, like it really speaks to how we're human first. We deeply believe and love our country and we love our community and we want representation. And that is where the power is. Oftentimes I recognize we're going through some really hard times in the Latino community, but it's in part because people are also afraid of our power. So it's important for us to find our power. So Camila, can I ask you, what are you going to do on election night? Do you have any plans?
Sorry?
What are you going to do on election night? Do you have any plans?
What am I doing on election night? I'm celebrating. It's almost like Christmas Eve. I'm doing election Eve, and I have a separate set of plans. And then on election night, just going to order a lot of food, and I'm dedicating the entire day to sitting in front of the TV. So I'm celebrating pre-election night, election night. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, I'll be celebrating post-election.
I hope we'll be all celebrating election night. Rosario, I want to be mindful because I think this is it's getting kind of choppy. What is your words of wisdom? Words of wisdom, Rosario.
Perfect slow motion time.
I know, perfect slow motion time. Rosario, do you have any words of wisdom? I'm going to ask if there's any questions from the audience. Because you know what? There's tons of people actually watching and tuning in. Lots of love for Cami, Rosario, and a lot of love for Texas, you guys. A lot of love for Texas. I see you, Claudia Mendez, Paulina, Virginia,
yes.
Sebastian. So Rosario, words of wisdom, because this is Camila's second election that she's going to be a voter. Give her some advice and others folks, like what we should be expecting and how we should be reacting. She can't hear me, but she looks fabulous.
I think it's you and I. I think it's just you and I at this point.
I think
We're
so.
the last survivors.
But can I tell you, if we were going to survive together, I'd love to be able to survive with you, Camila. I think we would have fun.
There'd be a lot of talking, that's for sure.
So Javier is asking, what are the possibilities of a new Voting Rights Act? I will share with you, Javier, if we are able to win Congress and the Senate, there is a huge mobilization effort for a Voting Rights Act. Because the biggest reason that people don't want us to vote is because they see our power. And together with the African-American community, we are unstoppable. That's a great question.
I think that, sorry, just to tail on to that, I think that what Salma said in our voting video was very interesting because she talked about Latinos feeling silenced.
Yep.
And being made to believe like our voice isn't important. And in my experience with talking to Latinos that I'm friends with and friends of friends, it's been a lot of my voice doesn't matter. And I think that's what we have been trained and kind of insinuated to believe. So I think that was a really interesting point that I really, really, really liked, that how the way that Salma talked about it and knowing our power. And once you know our power together as a community, it's very hard to not want to get involved.
I think that's 100%. So we have we have Paulina Sosa. She's coming via YouTube. How can we encourage those that can't vote to stay engaged with local policy? So I think that first of all, for those who can't vote, you can still volunteer with Voto Latino to help us get other people to vote, to go out to the polls. So if you text volunteer to 73179, people can still help us. We're trying to mobilize 3.7 million voters. We need all the help. So Paulina, if you want to if you have folks text volunteer to 73179, you can do that. But then once people are in office, we have to make sure that we are talking to the people who represent us. And so once you're a volunteer, we'll provide you with that information. But look, we have, 60 million of us live in mixed status families. Some of us can't vote. But I'll tell you, like, when someone's like, who are you voting for? This election, I'm absolutely voting for my kids. My daughter is 8 and 6. My son is 6. They're going to ask me 10 years from now, where the heck was I? And they're going to ask your nieces, your nephews, people are going to ask you, like, where were you? And they can't do anything except depend on us, because their planet right now literally depends on whether we participate this election. So there's various ways to get involved, but I do think that it's important for us to say, how do we pay it forward, and why are we participating? So we have one from so Jossie basically says, thank you guys for doing this. It means a lot to the Latino community. That's why we're here. From Turcal, what should we look for on election day? How do we make sure the election is fair and accurate? I think we have to flood the zone with voters. What do you guys think?
I say that all the time. I am one vote, but together we are many. And voter suppression is a very real thing. You watched that just happened in Florida in the 2018 midterms. Floridians voted overwhelmingly to allow felons who had served their time to be able to vote. And then the Republican legislature said, you could do that if you pay this poll tax. And now people have been pouring in all this money to make it possible to pay whatever fees were left over, so these folks could be re-enfranchised and have their voices be a part of the political system that put them away in the first place, and made sure that they, served their time for their crime. But now the crime of disenfranchising them has not been lifted.
Yeah.
And so, it's that is just one really clear example of voter suppression right there. And we're seeing it across the nation, from purging, and, this is what they do when they redistrict spaces, and gerrymandering, and all of these different things. So that's the kind of stuff that's on this ballot. You think about places like Iowa, that has actually a very large Latino population, and they have a lot of seats, state legislature seats, that if they vote and they get to change of office for a lot of those seats, what happens? We get to have fair lines drawn that actually represents the community that you're not going to get for years to come. And that means redistricting and making Iowa actually have fairer and safer elections. And so those are all the kinds of things, state to state, locality to locality, to be looking at and recognizing. That's when we talk about the down ballot tickets. What's really critical, and making sure we're showing up, so that the midterms, we had women and people of color flooding in and changing history. And because of it, we got 400 pieces of legislation that is incredibly progressive, bipartisan, that got passed in the House. Now it's sitting in the Senate, and we have an opportunity to flip the Senate so that those bills can be signed into law and they can start benefiting all Americans.
Absolutely. So I have a question for you ladies, because I already know my answer. So I'm going to ask you guys. Papaya the Mariah says, are we going to flip Texas this year? This year, right?
That's the goal. Crossing eyes, fingers, toes, all the things.
And the people, we need you guys to flood it. So I want to ask you guys, do you remember, this is from Herman, do you remember the first time you voted? And what's the memory like?
That was 4 years ago for me, so I feel like I can take this question.
Take it.
No, I mean, I voted the first time was 4 years ago. It was obviously a very different election than we're in right now. And I think that you can really feel that with the get out the vote stuff. I mean, I have friends who are getting involved with this who normally wouldn't really care and don't really care about politics. I wasn't super into politics, to be completely frank, before this election. I've only just now started educating myself because of what's at stake here. And the risk is just too great and too grand for us not to take a stance. And, Yeah, the first time I voted, I voted here in LA and I went in person. This year I did it by mail-in. I dropped off my ballot and felt just as great. I still got my sticker and I still felt really proud and walked out of there excited and like I had a voice and I felt super empowered. So different experiences, but just as great.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I don't know what it is about that sticker, but it's until I get my sticker that it makes all the difference.
All the difference in the world.
I didn't even know what the sticker on my body. I was like, do I want to wear it here or do I want to wear it here or put it on the back of my phone?
Well, I always put it here. I always put it here, and then after election day, I always put it on my phone. And it literally it actually gets really gross because it actually like literally like melts off. But I hold on to it. So this is very cute. Zay basically said, I was trying to figure out where Rosario Dawson was, but then I finally recognized her voice. Thanks, Zay.
I love that with the stickers, I used to collect stickers when I was young, the scratch and sniff and all those kinds of things. And now as an adult, I love that I'm still collecting stickers. My I voted sticker, which totally feels great. I've now voted when I was living in New York as a New Yorker, when I lived in California as a Californian, a Los Angeles. And now for the first time, I just voted in New Jersey. So I got to vote for my boyfriend and my senator, Cory Booker, and I got to vote for the legalization of marijuana and expunging records and doing all of those different things. And I think that for me feels like I'm voting in the 21st century. Like I'm actually voting for progress. And that feels really exciting. I was bummed to miss this election in part though. In LA, there's some really like Measure J, which would change the Los Angeles Constitution and make it possible to have 10% of a budget created so that we can start doing housing and mental health services and all the stuff that's building on Measure R and building on all of the advocacy and protesting and marching that has happened to say that we need to start reinvesting in communities rather than just policing them and targeting them and penalizing them for having drug problems or poverty. We penalize people for being poor. And we starve them of resources. And so this is going to make it and completely change the game to make it possible for there to be a real budget to really help people in LA and if it passes there, we can start spreading it across the nation and changing how we do it.
That's absolutely true. It's interesting because a lot of folks don't realize that California is kind of like that. It's that laboratory of ideas and policies, and then all of a sudden it just sweeps the nation. So, folks, I know we're wrapping up. So before we wrap up, what is your words of wisdom if someone has not yet voted and is saying, "Why should I do it?"
Well, I have experienced that. I have had my friends say that they're not voting, and it didn't go off very well with me. I tried to keep it cool and not go all Latina on them, but I did a little bit. And I'll just say that in my experience, when I have experienced that with my friends, I just kind of reminded them personally how this will affect their day-to-day life. And I think that when people are reminded the proximity of this, I think there's kind of a feeling like, you're either in a blue state or a red state. It doesn't matter what you vote. You're already going for whatever your state is going. And I just reminded them, what day-to-day life will look like. And can we really afford for someone to deny climate change for another 4 years? I mean, we have 11 years to potentially reverse climate change. I don't think we can afford to lose 4 more. And I just, depending on who that person is, I just try and feed them a little bit of here and there and hope that one of the things I say will hit home with them and they'll change their mind and they'll swing.
They'll swing.
I love to encourage the idea of that many more people because, María Teresa, this, when people show up and they vote, we use those numbers. We're a year-round organization and we go, see? Look at all these people who voted for this, and we hold our leadership accountable, and we continue to push them after the fact. People go, I voted, and I went back to my life, and that's okay. It's not necessarily that you have to be here every single day and every single second like us political junkies, but we use that, and we are able to say in history, this is the 100-year anniversary of the women's right, 19th Amendment for a woman's right to vote. 100 years. And we can say resoundingly, women across this country owning that and going, you know what? We're making it really clear that what we fought for and what so many have were denied even after that fact. Native women, women of color, Asian women, decades later, still were not able to vote after the 19th Amendment was passed. We're going no more. We're going to show loud and clear when people look back on 2020, there's going to be a lot to look back on, but I hope the most glorious thing is that we broke all the records and so many people turned out, because all those people, the 100 million people who sat out in 2016 said, you know what, I'm putting my foot in, I'm making that step forward, and I'm making myself really clear so that our leadership, no matter how much money is thrown at them by some lobbyists, gets that we're the boss, we get to call shots. And I love that you brought up again those measurements and those propositions, because that's not even just voting for leaders, that's actually voting for laws.
Yeah.
That's having a say, and you being the leader, you being the boss, and you can do that resoundingly.
So what I love about this conversation is that I have these two fierce Latinas who are slaying across the board, but spending the time to empower our audience. And I'm so grateful for you guys. And look, if folks are saying, well, I don't even know what's on my ballot, we got an app for that. So text PLAN, PLAN, to 73179, and we will provide you everything you need, including a lift to the polls. Got the whole thing. Guys, we have 6 days left until voting season ends. Go vote now so that we can make sure that people have all the information they need, but go vote now, because when we say that we need to flood the voting booth, we are not kidding. You want to have a decisive election on November 3rd, vote today so that we are banking our votes, so that all of a sudden we can say, oh my God, not only did we make a difference right now, we made a difference for the country. And I'm not kidding you. The results of this election are going to impact our planet. They're going to impact the world leadership of whether or not people are going to be bullish to do the right thing by our planet, by our communities. And so I send a lot of love to you ladies. My hope is that we actually get to celebrate in person. And thank you so much, Camila, for stepping up, stepping in, and hitting it out of the park. Rosario, go raise money for Wisconsin. We need it. We need it. Sending you all love. Hasta luego. Ciao. Go to Voto Latino. Chao, mis mujeres. Bye. Gracias.
Bye.